Golden Spiral Media presents The Blacklist Exposed.
Gather round, everybody. We're going to have rug time now on the award-nominated Blacklist Exposed podcast. I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson, coming to you live from my mission in Austin, Texas. Thanks for joining us this week as we discuss number 75 on the Blacklist, The Major, which aired March 12th, 2015. It was written by John Bokenkamp, John Eisendrath, and Lucas Reeder. And it was directed by Michael Watkins. Show notes and other intel for this episode of The Blacklist Exposed can be found at goldenspiralmedia.com/theblacklist. Troy, when I talked about Austin, I should say I am actually in South by Southwest right now.
Oh, so we're award nominated, and now you get all the cred and stuff to be able to hang out with the posh people this weekend.
No, I get this from the Hollywood Outsider, man. Sorry, it's something to do with you.
Oh.
But it is fun. It's a good time. If anybody's a movie buff or you ever think about it, you should definitely give it a shot. We are halfway through the voting process for the 2010 Podcast Awards at the time of recording this podcast. It's not quite done yet. There's still some time, I think, until, end of day, March 24th, I believe?
That is correct.
So I want to remind you, everybody that's listening, if you could, you can vote every single day, and make sure to verify your vote via email. You should get a verification email. If you don't get one, try re-voting, because it's a computer program, so it doesn't always work. You do have to put in a real email address and verify your vote, or it doesn't count, so you can't put in mamacrackcorn at Gmail. It's actually got to be a real one. And remember, we are a finalist in the entertainment category. There's a few other Golden Spiral Media shows that are nominated as well. So please go visit goldenspiralmedia.com/podcast awards for all the details.
Yeah, and as Aaron mentioned, he's down in Austin, Texas for the Hollywood Outsider, and his show is nominated as well in the movies and film category.
Woo woo!
So if we don't say it enough, thank you for being the best fans ever. Again, podcastawards.com to cast your ballot every day, as Aaron said, through March 24th.
That's so cool.
Can't wait. It's going to be exciting.
We asked you last week to answer our profiling question for T. Earl King, which was, why did Red say Lizzie as Jabari was about to shoot Red? Now, Richard says, he knew that she was there. Women will argue with me, but each woman has her own smell, at least to a man. Alrighty. That's, sure. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, yeah, you have the attraction thing, pheromones and all that stuff. I could buy that. I think Jabari smells worse than Liz, so it would mask the smell, but...
Wow. I don't know, Richard. I'm going to have to go around and smell some women, and I'll get back to you. Probably be in jail by next week. Monica and Suzanne said he felt her presence. It was telling her to hurry up and shoot the guy. Nobody's really buying the whole... That was the last thing he was thinking of, right?
They apparently read as Yoda now.
Lizzie. Jenny, that was a horrible Yoda. Jeannie said she was his last thought. He believed he was going to die. That's what I thought, Jeannie. Victoria, along the same lines, he probably thought he was going to die, and who will take care of Lizzie?
Aw.
Nicole said, because he is in love with her, whoa, and she's the most important person in his life, he had no idea she was there. In love, she said specifically in love.
In love is the key word there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she hears music when those two are together. Terry said his heart was bursting with love for her. He thought he was going to die, and there was so much he needed to say to her, he just uttered her name. Aww. But she says with love, not in love.
Which could imply both ways. She's leaving it vague for us to contemplate.
Yeah, where Nicole's all like, it was 50 Shades of Red. Robin said she's the one thing he values and loves beyond anything else in the world. Seems there is nothing ever out of reach for Raymond Reddington except Lizzie.
So the out of reach except for Lizzie part makes me think she's the in love versus the just love as a familial tie.
Yeah, I guess she does. Yeah, there's some people that nobody seems to think what you think, Troy, which is that he's doing everything for himself and he's evil and he doesn't really have her best intentions in mind.
Well,
what?
There can only be one thought that's right, and it's mine.
Well, I don't know. You flipped last week, so I guess your opinion isn't really a line in the sand either.
That's because I flip the show all the time.
Oh, Lord. Marge said, I don't know why, but I thought it was so beautiful. And finally, Rory said it was definitely out of love. once again leaving it vague, and one of the last words that he ever spoke to be her name. I'm getting teary.
Good question. That was yours last week. I like that.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question. I mean, I'm not saying that because a lot of people ask that question. And I think they did it very smartly and astutely to where there could be a multitude of answers.
Well, it's my question this week, and it's, again, a question everybody in the fandom was asking, especially during the show on Thursday night on Twitter. So if you want to answer the profiling question of the week, head on over to the Facebook group and search for The Blacklist Exposed, or join us on Twitter at The Blacklist GSM to join the discussion. So everybody is asking the big question, who do you think the judge is working for? Is it Red? Is it the Alliance? Is it a potential new threat? Very interested in lots of stuff we're going to talk about up next as we break down this week's episode case profile. This week, the Major finds the crazy ones, the misfits, the sociopaths that just don't fit into the system and turns them into undercover operatives for clients that hire them. One of these sociopaths is none other than our good friend Tom Keene himself. And, of course, one of his clients just happens to be Red. Now, Lizzie's in hot water because a judge has actually subpoenaed Cooper to confirm Liz's story that she told to Detective Wilcox. However, the Deputy Attorney General is trying to get a motion passed that the case be dropped in the name of national security. And I love the implications this week, Aaron, about how they were talking, is the government covering up stuff enough? You know, do we have to really bend at the will of the government? Let's just start there this week. What do you think about government conspiracy and cover-ups and where the limit is to protect the union?
And transparency and whatnot. It's a good point to take up in the show. I don't know if they really took that point. It really seemed like it was servicing the objective of the story this week. It didn't really seem like they're really tackling that particular issue. They didn't make it an issue, I guess.
And I think that was clear that they used it as the issue for the storytelling, but the thing that really struck me was that the Deputy Attorney General and the judge seemed to be friends, because I don't know the last time you were in a courtroom, but you never addressed the judge by their name.
No. Well, I mean, I guess if you're somebody powerful, you could.
Really powerful, like the president, maybe.
Really powerful. Like really powerful. And I do want to say, before we get into the nuts and bolts, it felt very much to me like this episode was written by Bokenkamp, because his name's, obviously he was part of one of the writers, to specifically yell at the complainers of the show, or the detractors, or the people that thought that the show was slipping off the rails a little or something. Because there were several moments throughout where I got the impression that Lizzie was talking to us. Does that make sense?
I looked at this episode as two ways. One of them was exactly how you took it. Like, hey, don't you remember there's all this stuff that happened and it all ties up to this point?
Mm-hmm.
The second way I took it was this was the episode you need to introduce the people that started watching after the Super Bowl to actually know who Tom Keene is and what Tom Keene's influence was in her life, because they may not have seen the early parts of season 2 where Lizzie in this boat and the harbor master and Tom was being held kidnapped, and what that all had to do with this story. So I really like the episode kind of setting up what the push will be towards the end of season 2. I think it was very well written, very well needed, just to make sure everybody's in the same place moving forward.
I don't buy the after Super Bowl thing. This is something that if they were going to do that, they could have done that in the last month. I get what you're saying, but I definitely don't think you need 20 minutes of recaps. So there were a lot of people that complaining about, is it a recap episode? I get that. There's enough story in there to where I still enjoyed the episode, but I did think it was a little too recap heavy.
Okay, so you'll be on the don't like recap side. I'll be on the really like the way they did the recap side, and we'll actually talk about that a little bit more in depth when we get into the characters, because there are key lines that they used in those recaps that you need to focus on.
Absolutely.
I really like that we got the Deputy Attorney General's name, because it's still not even on IMDb. Revan, thanks to the judge. So at least we have a name to a face now.
Yeah, is that a real name, like Revan?
I just think she's like a sports car driver. She just likes to Revan all the time.
Lord, wow, that was so bad.
So bad.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't need a name for it. I mean, just ominous is good with me.
But there's so many of those ominous characters, like the director. And, it just gets to the point where it's like, just give me a name so at least I can keep the character straight. I appreciated it.
She seems like she's on the up and up. She's a good egg. That's good that we have one. To me, it says that they're going to start incorporating her more into the story. The fact that they finally gave her a name.
Now, it does make sense that Tom is the only one that can save Liz because he's the only other eyewitness to this entire Harbor Master scenario. But really, another kidnapping? Now, granted, it wasn't Red or Lizzie, but...
Holy crap, I didn't even think of it. That's the second week in a row. I didn't even think of it. I'm like, wow, that's not... Wow, you did have another one. That's like, what, 5 or 6 in a row?
Exactly.
Do you think they have a board and they just throw a dart and if it doesn't go outside the lines, I guess we got another kidnapping?
I'm assuming it's a Guinness Book of World Records competition now, trying to get as many in a row as they can.
Like, see if they can finish the whole season and say, look, here's what we're going to do, guys. We want a kidnapping every episode.
Exactly.
If we could get it until, like, the finale, and in the finale, we're just going to blow their minds and not have one. And just minds blown. That's pretty funny. I didn't even think of that, but you're right. Yep, another kidnapping.
But what did you think about the concept of kidnapping a United Nations member? Is this, again, this government overstepping? The FBI can just take this guy off the street while he's out for his morning jog?
Well, no, absolutely not. I mean, that's against about 14 different violations of law and international treaties and God knows what else. They have a particular set of skills, these guys. So they're off the books. They can do a lot of things that most people couldn't do. And for as much detracting and stiff-arming, and we're not going to do it, and all that other stuff that Ressler and Cooper were telling Red, it sure didn't seem to take long to jump on board.
Now we have the judge says, I'm not going to hear this, the grand jury. I'm just going to hear it myself in my room. And Lizzie, if you ask for a lawyer, all bets are off. Now, I don't know about you, but I would have requested a lawyer to be present just because he needed that extra eyewitness because the stenographer works for the court, obviously. What did you think of the judge giving her that ultimatum?
Okay, when I said earlier that I had a problem with the recap, this is the biggest problem I had with it. It didn't make sense in the story of the show, or in the crux of the show. The guy's trying to, yes, I understand he's trying to determine the point of view of, is this too much of a national threat to actually bring up in court? Get it. You don't have to recount every aspect of your entire investigation, and you sure wouldn't do it with a stenographer present, because I would think that the judge would understand that this is in the privacy of my chambers. Therefore, it wouldn't be part of a court record. Therefore, why would the stenographer need to be there? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I had to swallow a lot of believability just to get through the episode. And it's not. I'm not knocking the show. I realize they got a job to do, but that whole point, I'm like, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, especially if he's taking his own notes on his notepad on the desk with his little thought process diagram that he's drawing. Yeah, the stenographer was the one thing that kind of took me out of that sequence again, because of the same thing. And people are asking, like, the judge is fishy, right? He's given this ultimatum and he's asking a lot of questions about Tom and Red and the fulcrum. And is he doing it because he's thinking about the case, or is he doing it because he might be an alliance member, he might be working for somebody, hence our profiling question of the week. The thing that really struck me again was that also falls apart if you're the writers doing this scene and trying to drive potentially that the judge might be somebody on the blacklist or whatever by having the stenographer there. So yeah, take the stenographer out and I think it works so much better. Well,
absolutely, because off the record legitimately means off the record. And part of this is, full disclosure, I was a criminal law major in college. So for me, as soon as this thing's going, I'm like, what? No, that wouldn't happen. I'm sure there's probably exceptions to every rule. It just didn't make sense for me where we have this extremely covert organization with extremely covert rules, very top-notch national security. We got to make sure nobody knows about this. So why don't you and your stenographer, maybe if you got some friends that want to come in, I'll tell you all my stories. You know, and that's the part where I had a hard time with it. If it would have just been Lizzie and the judge, I think I would have. I'm on your side. I would have bought it a lot easier.
Yeah, totally. Now we have Red. I don't know about you, but I like rug time. You like rug time?
What do you mean by rug time? Now, keep in mind, I only got to see this episode once, so I want to apologize, and I'm going on like 3 hours sleep. It's been a long week, so I might have missed some of the more finer details.
So in the case of the UN, he's talking to the Malaysian Deputy Minister Krishnan and says, hey, I don't understand the United Nations. It's like everybody is in kindergarten playing nicely with each other, and then you have rug time where the teacher has you come over and read books to you and kumbaya and all that stuff.
Okay, now I remember. All right, thanks. Yeah, definitely. Rug time is something I want to play with.
So do you like the conversation he has with Krishnan? This is interesting because Krishnan is the first one I think that we've had that's like, who the heck are you? He doesn't know Reddington. So I thought that was a really interesting twist.
Yeah, I like that he didn't just walk in and scare the crap out of him. The guy had to know, what do you want? What do you think I can do? And Red had to bend him to his will. I actually prefer those as opposed to Red walks in and everybody's afraid of him, so they just cooperate. I like this aspect more. This is how they should be done. We should see what kind of criminal Red really is.
And in this case, it sounds like he's a compassionate criminal because he actually ends up getting, the tickets to the cockfighting going on, even though he likes fried chicken. And then at the end of the day, does he now have an ally in Krishnan in Malaysia?
Compassionate criminal, I think you're stretching there. I think he's just buying some goodwill. I don't think Red's compassionate to Krishnan's cause at all, not even a little bit.
Now, there was one other part we were talking again about taking you out of the story. The Major, he says, there's strict protocols. Once you're in, no contact.
So let me meet you at this Denny's?
Exactly. So he breaks the someone breaks the protocol, and then you come in alone, like not even a bodyguard, not a compadre, like a Dembe.
Yeah.
That was a little weird.
Well, Dembe and Red even had, who is the guy that looks like Chris Christopherson? Who's that guy? Or Anson Mount. He looks like the guy from Hell on Wheels. I'm like, where'd you come from?
Yeah, the bouncer that stands outside to let Ressler not come back in to talk to Krishna.
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on? You gotta have protocols broken for this show to work, and I was fine with it. But yeah, I was kind of laughing. And Lance Henriksen, he played the role well. They tried to do as much exposition as they could to explain why he would be there, even though part of his rule book is that I won't be there. It worked for me. It really didn't bother me. I did think it was kind of funny because I'm like, so you're telling him your number one rule is we don't meet, but here you are meet. It's like number one rule is we don't talk about Fight Club. So everybody starts talking about Fight Club.
Well, maybe the issue was that his bodyguard was actually undercover as a stenographer.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's a possibility. There's some people that are bringing up the concern that the stenographer might be in on something because she asked Lizzie if she wanted something from the vending machine. I'm like, wow, you're looking for some conspiracies but that might play out as the show goes on. I actually think it's an interesting theory.
A laced candy bar with a tracker inside of it?
Something. Well, one of those two in that, and I'm not trying to get off the Major. I understand we're still talking about the Major. But one of those two, Lizzie, or the judge or the stenographer, one of those two is dirty. One of them. I don't know which one, but one of them is dirty.
Now, we have jobs, corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
Rule number one is when your boss asks you to do something, you do it. And you never question your boss. Do you think Dembe's questioning was apropos or he took a big chance there?
Well, you and I live in different worlds. I question my boss all the time. When he gives that speech, I assume you mean the part where he's like, tell Lizzie and you need to tell Lizzie, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out how much he was saying, right? Because I watched it the second time. And he's like, you need to tell Lizzie about Tom. But then he continued. So it does seem like Dembe knows everything.
It seems like he does. I think Red would tell him a lot, but I don't think he'd tell him everything. It doesn't suit the character. I mean, it doesn't make sense it doesn't benefit him in any way. And your question leads back to my interpretation at the beginning of the episode where I said, the way I understand it, the way I'm reading this episode, it feels very much like Bokenkamp telling the audience, the people that have complained, not the general audience, because most people that love the show just love the show. But there are some detractors that have been, on Twitter and whatnot the last few weeks and or last month complaining about certain aspects of the show. Kidnappings being one, that's a legitimate complaint, as we keep finding out. But also Keen's character, why she does what she does, and we talked about that. We don't want to keep revisiting that well. But to me, this episode feels like a direct commentary to those detractors saying, pay attention, we're doing this for a specific reason, it will play out, give us time, give us a chance, that sort of thing. It really felt like that. And both from Lizzie's character when she's like, wow, I must suck, or whatever, when she gives that speech, and also Dembe telling Red, you have to tell her everything. It's basically like saying to the audience, we understand what you're frustrated with. We realize it, we accept it, we acknowledge it. We will get there. Give us time. That's what I got.
Well, then for all those people that hated this recap episode and didn't like the fact that they used the recaps in this manner, great transition, because I think Bokenkamp and Eisendrath and Reader were actually giving us some answers that maybe got glossed over. The big one is Tom and Red's relationship, and how could this hospital scene actually have happened? Did you pick up on that at all as you were watching?
Explain what you mean. What did you see?
Well, I see when I go back, and we'll talk about this when we get into Tom's character a little bit, but the big thing that I noticed was Red hired Bill, the major, to get Tom to go to Liz. So from the beginning, Tom and Liz are together based on Red's interaction, which means Apple Eater was working for Tom/Red/the major. And at some point, the reason why they don't know each other at the hospital is because Red contracted through the major. So Red knew Tom, but that's why Tom didn't know Red, because he wasn't working for Red, he was working for the major. And then eventually he flips and goes to Berlin because the major tells Tom plans have changed.
Okay, I got that, and I agree with you to a degree. It's a nice pickle they wrote themselves out of. Good job, guys, because it does work, absolutely. What I would say to that is that, to me, makes Red a real jackass. Because, before, I think there were some concerns, and you thought, well, Berlin hired Tom, so really, Red's not a complete douchebag. He didn't hire this guy to romance Liz and, get in her bed and ruin her life, which is basically what Tom did. And now it turns out Red did. So for me, that makes him more despicable, not less. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I could see that, but that's what I've been saying all along, that Red literally only is interested in getting the fulcrum, and he's willing to have Tom be in her life as long as possible.
Troy, I can't keep up with what direction you go. You flip back and forth each week. We gotta lock you down, brother. Lock it.
I mean, we'll switch into the characters then and keep going with Tom, because this is the one thing that I really liked was this opening sequence where the major picks him up off the street back in 94, and we get confirmation that that's Tom because Jacob is his name, and we remember that Tom told Lizzie in the boat that his name was Jacob. So we had that confirmation right off the bat. And then I love that they replayed that scene in case you forgot that Tom told Liz on the boat that his name was Jacob in the flashback. So again, very creative use of the flashbacks to make it work. Now, the thing is, though, is when the major's talking to Tom in the car and says, hey, we have an assignment for you, the question I have is how long was Tom courting Liz before they get married? Now, he's young there, like high schoolish, so maybe not to college, but maybe like he was turning 18 and they started dating in college, possibly.
You got me. She started at Blacklist, she was 25, she said? Something like that?
Yeah, she's 30 now. She's been a profiler for 18 months.
Oh, for 18 months, so she's 28.
But I think she was part of the FBI before that, wasn't she? Or at least 4 years at Quantico or whatever the training is.
So she's like 25-ish, whatever. I don't know. I really don't know. I think those kind of things are left a little open so you can put your own interpretation in it. Obviously, he would have had to romance her. I don't expect that she's the type that meets a guy and runs off and gets married. I didn't like the sociopathic aspect because a sociopath wouldn't eventually start having feelings for her. So obviously he's not. Maybe he just exhibited a few of those tendencies, like I said. I don't know. It seems like a very intricate plan, and it's hard to buy into it without really knowing why Red would want that to begin with. I realize he wants the fulcrum, but that's a really long, drawn-out plan.
Yeah, but the fulcrum was in play back when Lizzie was in that closet in the house fire. So you have to get the chess pieces in play to get what you need. Apparently, because we still don't know, right? Was Red dead on the floor? Was Red the guy at the door? Was Red the woman at the door?
Again, with that stupid theory. Stop it.
It's going to come back to play, I'm telling you.
Stop it, Internet. Stop it.
So at the end of the day, the fulcrum has always been this thing. And the fulcrum, I still think the alliance was behind the bombing that happened in Russia that, affected the whole Berlin saga. So this is part of a larger conspiracy at the end of the day. So the real question then is with Tom, does he really have feelings for Liz? Because, Red says the merchandise was defective, but if Tom was just doing his job and he flipped to go to Berlin, there's no reason to say that the merchandise was defective. The major caused the switch to happen.
What do you mean?
Well, it made it seem like Berlin called Bill, the major, and said, hey, I need Tom now because I need to get to Keenan. I'll pay more than what Reddington is paying you. So Tom wasn't defective. Like Red's saying Tom was defective because he developed feelings. But how could you ascertain that? other than the fact that maybe the kidnapping scene and the boat sequence, and that's where the feelings came out, was at that point. But up to the Berlin saga, Tom was just following orders.
Yeah, I think that there's some definite truth to what you're saying. I'm confused in terms of when he exactly went defective in Red's eyes as well. I don't know. I would think he'd be more concerned with the fact that the major sold him out. The whole Tom thing, I mean, yeah, I realized he thought he was hiring a professional, but that's a long time to be with someone and not have any kind of feelings for him. Even somebody that's evil. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really hesitant to say exactly what Red meant by defective, because as cold and calculating as he can be sometimes, maybe it wasn't the feelings part. It's the fact that Tom would go along with the being a traitor, basically.
But then in the flashback sequence, and I picked up on this the second time I watched it through, he actually is saying the vows, and in his vows he says, "When I'm with you, Liz, I feel like I don't need to pretend. You accept me for who I really am." When you watch that scene in season 1, you're like, oh, he's just saying that because he knows she knows that he's a spy, and he's just trying to cover it up. Now when you watch that scene in the context of this episode, you're like, the key words there are pretend, accept me for who I really am. So did Tom actually have feelings for Liz?
Well, I don't think he thought that she was accepting him for who he was, because he wasn't who he was. You know what I mean? He was pretending. I think it was just a play on words. I think you're reading too much into it, honestly. They wanted to give you that impression, Troy, yes, but come on. Yes, he had feelings for her. Problem solved. We know that.
But that's the job of the writers, and that's why I really like the way they do these flashbacks, because they can use the same exact written language and have it mean one thing in one episode, but have it mean something totally different when you get more of the story down the line. Very much like some of those other genre television shows that we've grown up with.
You're really trying to sell this. The flashbacks are cool, aren't you?
I really thought they were. I thought it was an excellent job. Because it wasn't like it wasn't the whole episode. It's different when you like show the recap episode.
Oh, it was a lot, though. It was a lot. There was more than needed. A lot more than needed. You don't agree with that?
No, I think it told enough of the story to get people where they needed to be. We had someone on Twitter actually point out the fact that this is very much like season 2, episode 2 of Alias.
Do you get paid every time you say Alias? I just want to know.
I absolutely do.
At this point. Okay. Like $1 goes your way, I think, every week.
But I went back and watched that Alias episode, and that episode had way more clips in it and was done not as well as this was. It was more just that interrogation the whole time. This still had other elements in the show, so it was a little bit of the clips. Granted, it might have seemed like a lot to people, but there really wasn't, in total time, not as much clips as you think there were in this episode.
I think some of the fan, I wouldn't say backlash, but there were some people that didn't like the recap aspect. I think it's a negative stereotype almost with TV shows, because when you have recaps, it's usually at the end of a show's run, or it's an anniversary episode, or it's a really crappy X-Files finale. There's usually a reason for it, and it didn't really feel like – it felt like the information they provided in this episode could have been done in one flashback or one recounting of events, as opposed to 10, 15 minutes, whatever it ended up being, of recaps. That's where I think it was a little extreme. I don't think it was bad, though. I just thought there was a little too much. I
think the scenes that they pick out are very well chosen because of the words that are in there, and we'll get to more of that in just a bit. Let's talk about Ressler and Samar teaming up again. They seem to be the partnership rather than Ressler and Lizzie, at least for season 2.
At this point, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you think about just using them as the damsel in distress jogger versus and then snatch and grabber?
Same thing I said last week. We need more of both of them. We just need more screen time with both of them, and Aram too. Who was again kind of an irrelevant character. He's just there for asides. Ressler has been relegated to the background for the last few episodes. His character hasn't gone anywhere in a while, and I really think that part needs to be addressed. He's a good character. He's a fine actor, and Samar's doing a great job. I really like her addition to the cast, but we just need some more substance with them. But I realize they're trying to get a lot of major story events wrapped up so they can just blow into the finale.
Yeah, and especially with Ressler and how much time they spent kind of setting up his and Liz's relationship at the end of season 1 and through the whole Tom saga, plus this whole pill addiction thing that just seems to kind of fallen off the map in the working with the psychologist in the season 2 opener.
He's clean.
Yeah.
He walked it off. He's good.
It seems a little bit fishy that they haven't gone back there.
Do you want to go back to the addiction thing?
At least I want to at least go back to the psychologist, because the psychologist had this whole like, well, is she working for Red? Is she not on the payroll, or is she working for somebody else? And maybe we got that through the judge, because it's kind of that same therapy session, if you will, this week.
I really think that was because the one thing I will say about the show is, so a lot of shows will dangle a carrot and you'll never get that information on that carrot again for a long period of time, right?
Right.
And sometimes that's a benefit, sometimes it's a curse. This show seems to, except with the main arc of the story, which is who is Red and what is his relation to Lizzie, usually when they introduce a plot line, it is resolved rather quickly, or at least addressed rather quickly. Would you agree with that? Like sometimes almost too quickly. Yeah,
too quickly. Yeah, I like the longer burn, especially when you have a genre show like this. It just makes it want you to get those answers, but I like the intricate stories and how they tie out, because when the payoff comes, it's like, oh, that's awesome.
Well, see, I like both aspects, and I really kind of admire what they're doing. That's the one thing it seems to me like there seems to be a misunderstanding of the show, where a lot of fans seem concerned that we're not getting answers and stuff, but you're not looking week to week. We are getting a lot of answers. They're just the smaller questions, and a lot of shows would drag that out for an entire season. So I think the show needs to be commended for that. Now, the reason I brought that up and how it relates to Ressler is his addiction. I think they must have realized that storyline wasn't really going anywhere, because it hasn't been addressed in a while, and it seemed like, it was an offhand line, like, hey, I'm not taking the pills anymore or whatever. So I think that is done, and it's done because it wasn't working as a story element. It wasn't advancing in the story, because I really think, based on the show's history of addressing things a little faster, I think they would go back to it if they were going to by now.
But they did go back to it because he opened up the cabinet in the Kenyon family and found the codeine. It's like, hey, don't forget, he's a drug addict.
Yeah, it's a quick throw in, though. It wasn't like he just started pounding the pills. That's how you go back to that storyline. Like, you just see him, you walk into the bathroom and he's laying in a tub butt naked in a tub full of ice with pills all over him. That's how you that's how you go back.
You might see it come back to play because of the codeine scene. That's the only reason I think it might come back.
They'll have we'll have an episode of some flashbacks so they can establish that he used to have an addiction problem. How about that?
Yeah, after the whole separation with his fiancée.
God, don't do it. Don't do it.
As you mentioned, Aram does what Aram does this episode, so unfortunately not too much Aram. But Cooper was really interesting this week because he's been on this kind of, I want to protect the team, do what I can for the team, I give up the code for the factory, and he'll do anything he can for the team. And then he sits there and basically tells Liz point blank, you put me in this position, and I'm not going to perjure myself. You're kind of on your own, so don't expect me to come to your back. And then he comes to her aid at the end. So it must be summer because the flip-flops are back in style.
Wow. That's a long way to get to that joke, brother. Why do you think he flipped?
I mean, as I was listening to it the second time, when he said, Liz was there on official business, technically speaking, she was. She was trying to get the information on the Berlin from Tom. And Liz didn't kill Tom. Tom killed the harbor master. So technically, she is innocent. So as I listened to Liz the second time around, I actually convinced myself that Harold wouldn't be perjuring himself because he's actually telling the truth. She was there on official business.
You make a good lawyer. Look at that. You found a way to make it legal.
I don't know if I found a way to make it legal. It's just, if I was on a jury, I'd be like the 11 people vote, and I'd be the one naysayer and convince everybody else.
Yeah, I don't know, because it sure felt like he's perjuring himself to me. It really felt like he realized it was in the best interest of the Blacklist itself and in the post office, quote unquote, to make that determination. I think he felt like, I got to end this. This is the only way I can end it. It seems like, every time we think this thing is over, it keeps coming back. So I don't know. I was very surprised that he would go in there and lie. In your version, tell the truth, but in my version, lie.
The Major. Did you like the Blacklister? Do you like this concept of actually raising sociopaths to do bidding for criminals around the world?
Yeah, that's cool. And Lance Henriksen, awesome. Love Lance Henriksen. I've loved him forever. I said last week, I called him Frank Black because he used to be on a show called Millennium, and he's done so much character work over the years, including Aliens. You know who he is, right? Everybody knows who Lance, or at least you know his face. And in fact, go watch Hard Target. If you ever want to see Lance Henriksen hang out with a badass mullet, that's the movie to watch. He's a guy that I absolutely love watching. I followed for years as a big movie buff, big fan. So just to see him pop up in any aspect of the Blacklist makes it automatically a better episode for me.
It's interesting that Red let him live at the end, so do you assume Red's going to need his services again in the future? Did
he let him live, though? I mean, he walked away with Mr. Anson Mount from Hell on Wheels. He walked away with McCullen. And I don't know if that meant was he walking away to his death? Or do we assume since, in the Blacklist, if you don't see him die, they're not really dead?
Yeah, I would assume that because he was at least walking away to his car, and the way that Red was kind of nonchalant, that Red got the information he needed to find Tom. And so therefore the deal that they made was, I'll let you live just like I let the Malaysian deputy live.
Okay, then yeah, I definitely think they want to bring him back. I don't know in what aspect, because he's got a very, very particular set of skills. It's not like he's going to come in handy in a whole lot of circumstances unless there happens to be a well-placed asset that Red needs to get to.
Now, I'm really surprised that Samuel Alecko has gotten as much screen time as he has in this season.
Me too.
But man, dude, put your shot foot in your mouth and suck on that bullet for a while. Why would he just give up that answer? I mean, this was really stupid on Sam's part.
Yeah, this is probably honestly for me, weakest part of the episode. It was the part where I didn't get it because, I mean, he was committed to saving his brother, right? Like last week. And it seems like he flipped really easily. He already knew he was going to jail. So what difference did it make? Why didn't he just not rat again?
Well, and this is really interesting now because you talk about lawyering up. I thought this was a really great part of the episode because if you remember the conversation that Liz was having about the fact that she was on the boat and that she saw Samuel Alecko, and I can't remember exactly what she said, but she basically almost threw Sam under the bus, right?
Oh, she absolutely threw Sam under the bus, I thought, yeah.
So now that there's this bullet and it's got Sam's blood on it, says that, Liz shot Sam maybe in self-defense, maybe because he was escaping, and what Sam is really saying is a lie. That's why he recanted his statement, and now Lizzie has an out.
Huh. So do you think Sam ultimately is going to testify against Liz, or?
I think there's enough evidence between his testimony, his recanting Liz's story, and now finding the bullet with Sam's blood on it, that even if he said anything, a jury wouldn't believe him.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. The one thing I guess I want clarification on, where did Lizzie hire him? Like, where did she find him?
See, I think that was in this testimony that she's given to the judge. She said that he was a former informant of Myrna's.
Now, do you think that's true, though?
Possibly. I don't see why not.
It's just I don't remember, and I'm not saying it never has been because, like I said, 3 hours sleep. So I'm sure something I said throughout this episode makes no sense. I can't recall them ever explicitly defining how their relationship came to pass.
And I don't think they ever did.
Okay. All right, well, good, because I was starting to feel pretty stupid.
Right. But then Wilcox, I guess he'll stop at nothing to prove this. He opens up his trap in court at the beginning of the episode, and then he talks to the judge and says, hey, this is evidence. You need to do something about this, judge. So is his passion going to get him killed?
I respect that, though. I actually really like this guy at this point. He seems like one of the very few honest characters in the show. He's doing it because it's a public servant that died. He died, and he wants his life to mean something. And that's really what his job is supposed to be, is to find those killers. And if he thinks that Keene is dirty, and he has a lot of reason to believe that, totally understandable. And I totally understand where he's coming from. And I really think he should keep going for it. And yes, it'll probably get him killed. Or if not killed, it will get him publicly destroyed in some way.
And that's really the case here, because if you think about the show and what it sets up, this honesty, the whole Mexican fish story again, would I recognize the good if I saw it? This guy is like pure good. And because of that, does pure good win in the end, or does pure good get yourself killed because you have to be able to be a criminal at least a little bit under the skin in order to survive?
Troy, I've been watching TV for a little bit. So have you. I would always go with the impression that on a show like this, good people never end up winning. Never. Maybe the finale, if there's a series finale. But generally, it's not going to work out well for him. He should stop being a good guy, honestly. If he wants to live in this world, he should probably just say, nope, Keen didn't do it. We're all good.
All right, Liz this week. Do not question where my loyalties lie. Very heated comment by her. Maybe she actually really feels that she was doing her job instead of getting even at Tom when she had him in the boat.
She's wrong. If she feels that way, she is mistaken.
She's doing both, maybe.
I'm sure that, there's an objective. I mean, she was trying to get Berlin, but she also was pretty happy tying her husband up in a basement. Or in a boat, sorry. So, Sorry, Liz. You are fooling yourself, not fooling us.
Do you think there were a couple times through this interrogation, if you will, from the judge, the way she answered questions? I go back to the Deer Hunter episode and how she was like, oh, that's so sad. Oh, and then she turns on him and puts her in the thigh vise. Mm-hmm. The one scene where it's like, oh, I don't want to take a break. I just want to go home. Was she truthful at that? Or was that just kind of a line and she could flip on a dime and go back to her kind of, normal Lizzie voice?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it was all genuine to a degree, but it really all goes back to my theory. I really felt like this episode was Bokenkamp allowing the character to voice some of the concerns that have been on the internets and whatnot, and being able to address those directly to the audience and say, or maybe not even to the internet, but to the concerns that he was expecting from people on the character, which is to say, here's where I am, here's where I'm going. Maybe it's a little bit of that Super Bowl thing you were talking about. People that are new to the show, here we'll explain some of the finer details as to why she does what she does and why she feels the way she feels. But yeah, I felt like all of her interactions felt genuine to me. I didn't really get any, I'm playing the system here. You? What did you think? What did you think?
For me, it was interesting because it seemed like she was honest. I like the fact that it seemed like the judge was the audience and Liz was kind of giving the audience some information. Uh-huh. So I like the way they wrote it that way. But at the same time, I couldn't tell if Liz was saying what she needed to say to get herself out of the jam or if she was literally trying to be on the record. Because everything she said was true until she threw Sam under the bus. So what's the purpose there? Did her and Cooper maybe have a conversation before that we didn't see off camera?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, he had originally flipped on her. So I think her loyalties to him kind of went out the window, right?
Or you're supposed to think that based on how you saw it.
That's true. I mean, this is television, so a lot of things you're played with quite a bit. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It seems out of character for her because she's genuinely, outside of when she's dealing with Red, because she has to be manipulative, she's genuinely trying to do the right thing, I think, most of the time. With the exception of Tom on the boat. She was totally tying up her husband.
While trying to get information to do the right thing.
Yes. Sure, yeah, but really tying up my husband.
And, of course, her little outburst at the judge's office will be part of Red's Rhetoric this week because I thought that was just absolutely awesome.
Wow, I suck. I love that.
So good. I laugh every time. I've seen it like 4 times now, and I just crack up every time.
I love that. That was great.
The quippy one-liners I really liked as well that they wrote in after each of the clips. Yeah, our relationship with Tom, it was heated after the giant fight scene. I thought that was really good. And then the montage of all the blacklisters, of all the stuff blowing up. And then she's like, yeah, he keeps us busy.
I get what you're saying. It was nice how they put the compilations together and then paid it off with a quippy one-liner and whatnot. I just thought there was a little too many of them. But her character had a lot of good stuff this episode, which is good because people complain about stuff. And I keep saying, it'll let the season play out. I think it's going to work in the long term. And it really is for me. I mean, outside of my minor complaint that there's too many recaps in this episode, it was a good episode. And her character got a lot of substance, I thought.
Now, Reddington, finishing up our characters, he kind of gets something because now he has an in with the Malaysian guy. He now has an in again with Bill, trying to heal their relationship for the defective merchandise that Bill sold him. But his whole motivation again is to save Liz.
Is it? Is that his sole motivation? Have you ever seen him do anything that was just for Liz? There seems to always be a mutual benefit for him.
Well, the mutual benefit, I think, was getting back on good terms with Bill and then getting it in at the Malaysian government, because he doesn't have any goodwill towards Tom, I don't think.
No, I mean, the last time they talked, he said never come back, never come here again, never talk to Liz again, never deal with her again. You're done. So I do think, yeah, he's after him for something to do with Liz, to help her out in some aspect. But I really think there's a dual purpose. I just don't know what it is yet. You don't think so?
Most likely is a dual purpose. But my question is more around, is he trying to help her out because he cares for her or because he needs her? Because he still needs to get to the fulcrum.
Both.
Both is such a cop-out.
It's both, but it is true. It's not like a cop-out. It's true. I think he cares about her. Like, what's the driving purpose? Both. I think he cares about her enough to make this effort, and I think he needs her enough to make this effort. I don't really think there's a overwhelming aspect to either. I think he cares about her, and he needs her, and he's got to get this done. And I don't know if he even knows which one is really leading the charge. So, I don't think it's cop-out. What do you think? Pick a side.
I still think he just wants the fulcrum at the end of the day. And then you're going to get the reveal that it was because he cared about her. Because, and I know you're going to hate me for this, I'm going to go back to the mom theory.
Why?
Because in the flashback, right, there's reasons why they chose these flashbacks again. And that's why everybody that said they hated the flashbacks, I think, missed the underlying context. But they flash back to the box when they first met. And there was the scene about, of course you can't trust me, I'm a criminal. And he says the line, everything about me is a lie. Everything being the key word.
It doesn't mean that he had gender surgery.
It could.
It could mean he used to be an ape. It could mean he used to be a astronaut. I don't know what the hell it means, but that seems like the least likely scenario.
But that's a key word, though. Everything about me is a lie. So what we know
Red
about
is
him,
Bruce Jenner. God.
Regardless of the mom theory, just that line, though, everything about me is a lie. So what you know about him and the relationship about him is where the issue comes in, because you don't know what is the truth.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think everything we know is not true. And we will, like I said, we won't know all. There'll be layers unveiled and unwrapped every season, but we don't know Red the way we're going to know Red in a couple of years.
So I just attest that all of you that said you didn't like the flashbacks, go back, watch them again, look at them with a different lens. You may pick up something you missed.
Or they might dislike them more because they realize there's so many of them, and then they'll be more frustrated, and they got you to thank for that. Or blame. Do you really want that on your shoulders?
Maybe. I don't know. I just want them to see it the way I see it. I really liked it.
I don't think you can make people see things the way you see them. It was a good episode. Just a little too flashback heavy. But I do think if you go back and rewatch it, you're going to get some good filler for what's coming up in the wrap-up, or the last 4 episodes. We got 4 left or 3 left?
Maybe there's 6 left. I lost count. There's this 15 this week, so it'd be 7 left?
Okay, I don't know. My head hurts. It's one of those. We got several left, so I think they're getting into the final run of the story.
Absolutely. Well, that'll conclude the case profile. We do want to take a few minutes just to remind you all that we interact socially in 2 ways. Number 1, of course, is our Facebook group. Very popular. Lots of conversation going on there. Just search for the Blacklist Exposed on Facebook, or you can see the link on our website, or you can follow us on Twitter at the Blacklist GSM. We do different things in each channel. It's just not about interacting with Aaron and I, of course, but it's about you guys interacting with each other. I think that's where we really get a lot of interesting topics to talk about, is when you guys actually interact with each other and share your theories and your stories. And then, of course, that makes this show even better. And again, the Facebook group is The Blacklist Exposed, and follow us on Twitter at The Blacklist GSM.
I love all the feedback. So the more crazy theories we get that aren't as insane as Troy's, I love reading those. And remember, podcastawards.com. Vote every day if you could. Support The Blacklist and Golden Sparrow Media. Do it now! Even pause the show, then come back for Special Agent Intel and Red's Rhetoric, which is up next.
Now time for Red's Rhetoric, the part of the show where we play 2 different parts of what we like to call Story Time with Red. You get to vote which you think is the best by posting in the Facebook group. Again, Blacklist Exposed, just search for it, or tweet us at the Blacklist GSM. Last week, Red Liz was the clear winner because Earl and Red always think about themselves and never say thank you. This week, one clip from Red and one from Red Jr., a.k.a. Liz. Our first was the conversation that Red has with the Major's Malaysian asset.
But you won't get away with this. I've always been leery of the United Nations. The very concept is comically dichotomous. Nations putting their self-interests aside in the hopes of building a global community, holding hands in kumbaya. I mean, honestly, it's like kindergarten. Do you have rug time? I did love rug time.
Who are you?
It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is who you are. A secret agent, trained by the Major, working away as a dedicated public servant when in fact you're an asset.
Our second clip this week is when Liz talked about just how awesome a profiler she is.
I'm sorry, you're right. You're absolutely right. I should have known that when my husband and I were planning a family that he was in fact a traitor who had installed surveillance cameras in my bedroom. Of course, I should have been aware that the number 4 on the FBI's most wanted list would turn himself in and demand to speak only to me. God, what a horrible profiler I must be, to have missed the fact that I am central to the discovery of a blackmail file that will tilt the balance of power in, let me phrase this right, the entire world. Wow, I suck.
Which was your favorite line this week? Post to the Facebook group or tweet us, again, at the Blacklist GSM with the hashtag #RedRug if you think the UN is like kindergarten, or Red Suck if you agree that Liz is a terrible agent. Sarcastically, of course.
Thanks, Troy. Now let's move into Special Agent Intel. That's where we talk about the feedback from you guys. Carol, she made an interesting observation. She said Tom kills the guy in the car, and the construction workers are looking right at it, and the car goes off the road, the horn goes off, and no one comes to help.
I noticed that on the second watch because they're kind of in the background in a distance, but there is a guy across the street pushing like a cart or something. So why wouldn't they at least call 911 or the authorities to help out this guy who's now sitting there? I thought the car was going to hit the fire hydrant, personally.
That would have been fun. Rory said, I really enjoyed this clip episode. See, there you go. People are on board. And it did move the story along. Glad they touched on Tom's story and learning that Red put him in Lizzie's life only to be double-crossed by Berlin.
This goes back to what I said earlier. I think this was the key message to answer the question of why does the hospital thing work or not work in Nebraska. Again, watch the scene and you'll figure it out that Tom worked for Red the whole time until Berlin paid the Major more money to get Tom to flip.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they wrote that in there just because of some of the comments that have come up.
You wrote it because you think that they're kind of catering to the audience and listening to the feedback. I like it.
I don't call that catering, though. I call that respecting your fan base. So, I mean, I think as a showrunner, you have to know what's a good mix of, you know what, the fans might be right about this versus, hey, we got to trust our own vision. And I think they're doing a nice mix. Robin said, Dembe. He hardly ever speaks, but when he did, the student became the master. I agree with that. I actually thought that was a very, I don't want to say touching, because it wasn't quite touching, but it was a very direct and pointed scene, which I think was partially to Red and partially to the audience. Love that scene.
Yeah, and I think it only works because we had that awesome prayer sequence in Ansel Garrick to show the bond that the two of them had, plus the Mombasa cartel. So that's why he's able to say it and get away with it. Yeah,
I don't think the crazy hillbilly other henchman guy that Red's got would be able to say the same thing. He'd just get shot. Doc H wrote in, said NBC was messed up in our time zone for the Liz Tom Red recap episode in the judge's chamber. All we had were audio back channels, music, sound effects, and background noise, no dialogue. I'm sorry, man. That really sucks. But naturally, the commercials were fine because that's how it is. We got to see all the commercials. After 5 minutes of that, I remembered I could read it in closed captioning. Woohoo! A little bonding exercise with my deaf amigos around the planet. Of course, the network figured that they had an audio problemo after about 10 minutes and promptly put up an audio difficulties banner across the screen and, wait for it, effectively obliterated all of the closed captioning. Thanks, NBC. I bailed 5 minutes later.
Man, that sucks.
I will tell you, I watched it on Hulu because, like I said, I was traveling, or am traveling. The episode plays fine except for the ads. The ads pause like every time the streaming's interrupted. I just thought that was kind of funny. because it ended up being like an hour and 10-minute episode because the ads got locked up all the time.
But you're watching it on Hulu. You should just pay the $7.99, get Hulu Plus, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, watched it on Hulu. Oh, and parting thought, saw Charles Barkley yesterday. He was giving a talk on technology, which is funny since he doesn't use any. But during the course of the conversation, he made sure to point out that he is a huge Blacklist fan. Awesome. So everybody, we're in company with Sir Charles. That's
definitely not terrible at all.
It's not terrible. Not terrible at all.
You can also watch NBC.com has it up like literally the next morning. So if you ever like get stuck, can't watch it Thursday night, Friday morning, just log on to NBC.com and you can watch the episode there as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry you missed it. Watch it. It was a good episode. It really was. Well, that's going to conclude this episode. Be sure to follow us on Twitter this season at The Blacklist GSM. We try to live tweet during the East Coast feed, and we will use the show's hashtag, The Blacklist. We also have a Facebook group. Just search for The Blacklist Exposed and join us for the fun.
Intel from you is what we want, and we have a few ways you can submit intel right here into the agency. Visit goldenspiralmedia.com/The Blacklist and use any of the feedback methods on the left-hand side of the page.
Now, you can also subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and Stitcher from the website, as well as you can go find all the intel and analysis about this episode for The Major. Just go visit goldenspiralmedia.com/The Blacklist. Big thanks for listening. Don't forget to answer our profiling question. Who does the judge work for? If he even works for anybody. We don't know. We want to know what you think.
We'll see you next time. I am Agent Troy Heinrichs. That's at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast. That's available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com. I'm on Twitter at H_outsider, or my personal Twitter is at Kaz_Peters. Be sure to subscribe, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of
The Blacklist. The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production, copyright 2015. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.